The province is cutting funding to municipalities, many areas, 400,000 less for paramedics, 850,000 less for childcare, 240,000 less for interior works, much more. How does the city absorb these cuts without it causing social harm?
It's a good question. If you can help me with that answer, I'd appreciate some feedback. We've got out a little bit ahead of these cuts with our core service review we did several years ago. We've financially got our house in order. We didn't see these cuts coming, but I think we're in better financial position than we would have been if we hadn't sort of made some of these moves earlier on in the last term of council. So I credit council for putting us in a better position to ride through some of these cuts. Right now we're looking about a $2.5 million deficit going into our budget from provincial cuts at some of these services. We're still trying to find out which ones we're obligated to fund as a municipality and which ones we're not. We can choose to as a municipality or choose not to and just have our social services department, reduce that level of service to our residents. And it's a tough conversation to have because they're usually our residents that are struggling and there's a safety net there for a reason. And we'll just have to balance that with some of the other needs in the municipality and try to decide. But a $2.5 million, cut from the province results in about a 2.5% tax pressure, that we haven't accounted for. So when you say, how do you absorb that? Well, we can't absorb it. We either add it to the tax base to keep those services going, or we reduce, some of our service levels on the other side of it, or we debenture, or we try to tap into some of our reserves. So you can't just, that's there's a couple $100,000. We might be able to adjust a few things around and absorb it in there. But when you talk about cuts of that magnitude, it becomes a little bit of a bit of a bigger battle. And I don't think we've begun to see some of the cuts that are coming forward either.
That's what the advocate was wondering as well. Now, you touched on it, but what are some of the other pressures on the budget? For instance, maybe climate change. We could talk there.
Yeah, we talked a lot about climate change. Yeah. There are a lot of costs. Our winter control budget we continually talk about, which, as you mentioned, is a direct result of climate change. Our winters are becoming more freezing rain events, more thaw and cold cycles, which are taking their toll on our roads. It's not an excuse, it's just a reality. So our contracted winter services are increasing by 20%. Our salt costs that we put on the roads are going up 20 to 30%. There are costs that we can't control. Fuel prices are starting to go up because of something that happens in the other side of the world. Things, again, that we don't have any control over. So these are pressures. And again, it goes back to, can you absorb these pressures? A 2 or 3% tax increase each year does not make up for these pressures that we have. So we either need to find a way, to absorb it, or we need to cut some services. But, it can only go on for so long. Right?
A lot of people say, well, why don't you just cut staff? Isn't that the best way to do it?
Yeah, and you know what? It's the biggest part of our budget. There's no doubt about it. But we're in a service delivery business. We deliver services, and we need people to deliver those services. And we run a pretty lean municipality when you compare it to other municipalities. And percentage of budget and stuff like that go to staffing costs. We're not out of line, but we have a huge municipality, and we need good people to deliver those services that our residents expect. So, if we were sitting around, fat with all these extra employees that had nothing to do, then I'd be the first one in line to say, we need to be a little bit more lean. But that's not where we want to go right now. And the only way in my opinion, that we would be able to reduce staff at this point is if we cut some services that we're offering to our residents out of what we deliver. And then obviously we wouldn't need the help, delivering those services. So, in
terms of budgetary pressures, let's chat for a minute about recycling industry changes. I know now that's a cost. It used to be a bonus for the city, and now it's not.
Yeah, it is. It used to make us about $300,000 a year because overseas countries would pay for recycling. The market's changed through, again, a lot of things that we can't control. Our president to the south, and his great relationship with China has upset some different things, and now there are still countries that will take those recycling products, but they won't pay for them anymore. So we're responsible for them. So what has gone from a $300,000 profit, center for the city is now about a $300,000 to $400,000 cost to the city. Again, something that we've had no control over. But at the end of the day, we're still keeping product out of our landfill site. So I don't want to lose sight of that. The actual recycling is part of it, and people would say, well, why bother? Because the cost of putting all that waste into our landfill sites would more than make up for that $300,000 or $400,000. We only have so much life left in our landfill sites, so the longer we can extend that, the better it is for not just the environment, but for our pocketbooks as well.
Right. I think you mentioned that you're ready to work with the province to come up with a better way to deliver services, to be a part of that solution. How do you pick which services that council's going to choose to pick up when the province has done its cutting?
Yeah. It's a good question. We need to have those discussions at council. We need, feedback from our residents. I think we do have to make some tough choices. I think the province, whether you agree with the way they're going about it or not, there isn't a money tree for the federal government, the provincial government, or the municipality. The provincial government has recognized that, they need to make some changes to keep it affordable. And we are, without a doubt, an entity of the province. So, we're a part of that. When we sat with our ministers at AMO, in front of most of the multi-ministers, the first comment I made to them as the chair was that your financial problems are our financial problems. So we need to work together to, to come up with a solution. And, we all, same taxpayer, same pocket, same residents, whether you're federal, provincial, or municipal dollars. But we are the ones closest to the residents delivering those services on a daily basis. So, we need to decide what's a priority and make some choices. And, I don't think we can continue on the path of offering everything, trying to be everything to everybody. At some point, we're going to have to make some choices. So perhaps that's a topic for another show.
Perhaps. Maybe just briefly, we are running out of time. The $850,000 less to childcare. Any more information on?
Not as of yet, no. It's gone from 100% funded from the province to an 80-20, where the municipality will be expected to fund 20%. I don't know if 850,000 is the exact number. That's one of the services we're not sure whether we're obligated. They're changing the funding model. You're responsible for 20%. Province is going to maintain 80. But whether it's a choice or not for the municipality to fund, or whether we have to continue with that level of service. So that's one that we're waiting to hear back on.
And if it was not if there was a choice, then the parents would pick up that tab, is what you're saying.
Well, the parents would, or the municipality would reduce their level of funding in that, and whether that would result in less, childcare spaces, which is probably the opposite of the way we need to go for some of the parents that are, trying to find affordable care for their kids. So
being able to work and so on. Yeah.
Well, it's all part of that cycle, right? Trying to keep it affordable, but trying to get people on with their day and working and back home again safe.